welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Ravi Gamade.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara. We start off by taking a look at your headlines for tonight.
University students protest in Colombo. Police use water cannons to crack down on protest and make 20 arrests. Satyagraha by rice farmers in Ambilipitia called off temporarily. Opposition leader calls for measures to prevent brawls over water among local farmers. Opposition claims president should not interfere with parliament agenda.
හැබැයි ඊයේ මේ සම්බන්ධව කතානායකතුමා නියෝගයක් උතන කරා. එතන යාට කතා කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ.
ඒතර උසාවියේදී අපි ඒක නවත්තන්න කතානායකතුමාගේ නියෝගයක් ගන්නවා අධිකරණයට යන්න බෑ කියලා.
Another special research vessel operated by China's Navy in Colombo.
In your top story tonight, Sri Lanka police deployed water cannons to disperse a protest in Colombo, organized by the Inter-University Students' Federation.
The acting police spokesperson told News First that 20 people were arrested during the protest.
The Inter-University Students' Federation, a student movement in Sri Lanka, had organized a protest in Colombo on Thursday, citing multiple demands, including to terminate the Ranil Vijayadasa report that eliminates free education, to abolish the inhumane labour laws, and to prevent any attempts on the ETF and EPF funds of the people. The Maligakanda Magistrates Court issued an order preventing the protest from taking place after considering the submissions made by the OIC of the Maradana police, who claimed the protest would cause a public disturbance. One Inter-University Students' Federation group protested opposite the Vihara Mahadevi Park in Colombo, and another group marched in protest from the Kirulapana junction. Water cannons were fired on the protest march twice by Sri Lanka police. Thereafter, water cannons were used to disperse the Inter-University Students' Federation protest opposite the Vihara Mahadevi Park. Water cannons were used on them thrice. Thereafter, Sri Lanka police and the anti-riot squad chased after the protesters in order to make arrests. Sri Lanka army personnel were also summoned to crack down on the protest, and several protesters were arrested when they entered the public library premises in Colombo.
අපි ඔකත් කරු වැරද්දා පොදු දේපල හානි කරාද නෑනේ අපි ආ ළමයින්ගේ අපිට බේසරි නෑ මහා පොළ නෑ ඉන්න නේවාසියාකාර පහසුකම් නෑ සේලගෙත් ළමයින් වෙනුවෙන් තමයි අපිත් ආවේ සේලගෙත් ළමයි ඇති
Sri Lankan lawmaker Chandima Veerakkudi said that parliamentary privileges were violated as the president attempted to intervene with the parliamentary agenda. The Sri Lankan opposition leader also pointed out that there was interference with the judiciary. Here's a look at comments expressed in parliament on the matter.
What is your privilege issue?
I wish to direct your attention to the violation of privileges of all MPs. The IMF document is not the one that should be moved by the President. However, he tabled it and had it approved, depriving the opportunity to challenge it in the court.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට දාලා සම්මත කරා කියලා අහිංසක මිනිස්සුන්ට උසාවියට යන්න තියෙන අවස්ථාව නැති කරා. ඉන් අනතුරුව මුදල් කාරක සභාවේ සභාපතිවරයා පත් කරන්නේ
The chairperson of the Committee on Public Finance is appointed by the Parliament.
This has been debated. It's time for the adjournment motion. Be brief on your matter.
He came to Parliament and appointed the Committee on Public Finance chairperson. Yesterday he interfered with the agenda of Parliament.
න්‍යාය පත්‍රයට ඇඟිලි ගහන්න බලපෑම් කරා. ඔබතුමාට කතානායකතුමා සුප්‍රීම කෝර්ට් එකේ නඩුකාරය
Supreme Court judges are summoned to the Privileges Committee. I propose to summon the President to the Privileges Committee over the violation of privileges of parliamentarians.
පාර්ලිමේන්තු වරප්‍රසාද කමිටුවක් ගෙන්නන්න කියලා.
If the IMF proposal were noted and produced for discussion, they would say that we went ahead with the program without informing the Parliament. When we produce the proposal, they say they are wrong. The Speaker delivered a ruling and that cannot be challenged. The parliamentarians can make those comments to the media because time is being wasted.
කතා කරන්න දෙයක් නෑ. තුමාට ඒක ඕනනම් මාත් සාකච්ඡා තියලා කරන්න කියන්න. අද කාලය අපිට යන. මේ වෙලාවේ ගරු
The House was adjourned at the time, and what is being said afterwards cannot be placed in the Hansard.
බෑ කියන කාර්යය මම මතු කරන්නේ.
ඒ කියන්නේ තීරණයක් දෙන්න ගරු මන්තුමා යෝජනා
ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි ජනා
The President is visiting Parliament and attending to matters that should be done by the Parliament Business Committee. It is the Parliament Business Committee that should decide on Parliament business. However, the President has taken over that process. The President is also interfering with the judiciary. He is using his henchmen to raise privilege issues to claim that if judges deliver wrong rulings, they will be summoned to the Parliamentary Privileges Committee. This is intimidation. He is using the same threats to implement the 13th Amendment.
එක පැත්තකින් එහෙම තර්ජනය කර කර කියනවා 13 ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න. අපි හිතමු රජයේ යම්කිසි
Let's assume the government wants to do something but is afraid the matter will be taken in court. So what do? They move a proposal to Parliament and get it approved. Then they use a parliamentarian to raise a privilege issue and have the Speaker issue an order against challenging the matter in court. That is what happened yesterday. There was no need to move the proposal to the legislature. It was an embarrassment to the Parliament. I challenge the ruling faction to show the section that approves such move. The court are discussing this and the government did this on purpose. When the government attempts to do things as it pleases, the people will go to court. So the government gets the Speaker to say that these matters cannot be challenged in court. These proposals were moved to the Parliament to prevent anyone from challenging the immoral acts of the government, and they used the Parliament and the Speaker for it.
මේ විදියට රජයේ අශිෂ්ට වැඩ අධිකරණයට යන එක නවත්තන්න තමයි මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට මේවා ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ.
The Inter-University Students' Federation once again protested opposite the Open University of Colombo. Sri Lanka police, anti-riot squad and water cannon trucks were summoned to the protest site.
The Inter-University Students' Federation launched the first protest against the Ranil Vijayadasa report. This protest was attacked by the police based on the orders of the government. Many of our brothers and sisters were arrested. We urged them to release them immediately.
මෙන්න මේ සහෝදර සහෝදරයන් වහාම නිදහස් කරන්න කියන කාරණයත් අපි බොහොම බලපෑම් සාගතව ආණ්ඩුවට කියනවා.
The petition filed with the Supreme Court citing that the fundamental rights of EPF members are violated by the decision to pay an interest rate of 9% when investing funds in government securities will be taken up again on Friday the 11th. Chaturanga Besingha, an executive member of the Jatika Janabala Vegya and a member of the EPF, filed the application.
President's Counsel M.A. Sumandiran made submissions at the Supreme Court on behalf of the petitioner. He questioned the basis on which the government reached such a decision when the EPF funds belong to its members as per the law. He also noted that other countries that obtained facilities from the IMF did not make any changes to the social security funds when restructuring their debt. The Finance Secretary, Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, the Attorney General, among others, were named as respondents.
Convening a media briefing, the People's Tomorrow organization expressed the following views on Thursday the 10th.
The Supreme Court implements the Constitution. If someone goes to the Supreme Court and the justices hear the case, when the case is heard in court, according to Article 105 subsection 2 of the Constitution, it clearly states the Supreme Court as a separate entity established by the Parliament. Only the Supreme Court has the authority to interpret the matters related to the Constitution. Why does the President frequently speak of judicial powers? Cases involving several top-level politicians, including the central bank bond scam, are being heard in court. Against such a backdrop, the challenges posed by the President and some parliamentarians to the judiciary is a serious concern. If the justices are being influenced and brought before the Privileges Committee and attempts are being made to take action against them, how will the courts act in an independent manner? It is a serious concern if this journey to destroy democracy and influence the judiciary is moving towards a dictatorship.
අධිකරණයට බලපෑම් එල්ල කරමින් යන ගමන ඒකාධිපතිත්වයේ කරා යන ගමනක්ද කියන කාරණේ පැහැදිලි අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා.
Arid weather conditions have affected multiple localities across Sri Lanka, and the Disaster Management Centre said that 97,579 people from 30,155 families have been affected.
Sri Lanka's Disaster Management Centre reported that the Ratnapura, Trincomalee, Puttlam, Kurunegala, Jaffna, Mannar, Mullaitivu and Badulla districts were the worst affected by arid weather conditions. The dry spell had severely impacted 69,113 people in the Jaffna district. People living in the Kandavali Divisional Secretariat Zone in Kilinochchi are facing serious issues as most of the water sources in the village had dried up.
The villagers are inconvenienced as the springs and ponds have dried up. We have no way to feed cattle as well. The water in the Vavar and the wells have dried up. Over 15 wells have dried up.
Farmers in Nachaduwa in the Anuradhapura district have been left helpless as they are unable to source water for their crops. According to the local farmers, over 3,000 acres of rice fields are at risk of being destroyed.
We need at least 2 segments of water for these crops. If not, we will not be able to reap a good harvest.
Rice fields in the Variapula and Padani areas in the Kurunegala district are also facing imminent destruction.
150 to 200 acres of rice fields in Padania have been destroyed by the drought. There is no water.
Still in local news, the Food and Agricultural Organization delivered 8,360 tons of Japan-funded fertilizer to support smallholder paddy farmers in Sri Lanka recently. And on Thursday the 10th, the fertilizer was distributed to farmers in Jaffna.
The Food and Agriculture Organization delivered 8,360 metric tons of urea fertilizer this week to the Ministry of Agriculture for distribution during the forthcoming Maha cropping season. This was made possible through generous funding from the government of Japan. The event was held on Thursday to hand over urea fertilizer to smallholder paddy farmers in Jaffna. Ambassador of Japan to Sri Lanka, Mizukoshi Hideaki, FAO representative to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Vimlendra Sharan, Governor of the Northern Province, PSM Charles, and officials of the Japanese Embassy and the FAO were present at the event.
In recent times, the issue of water scarcity has become serious, as I heard from the farmers, posing significant challenges to our rice farmers. Additionally, the proper use of fertilizers is critical to sustain and enhance agricultural productivity. Yet, the global volatility in fertilizer prices, largely caused by the situation in Ukraine, has posed a severe challenge to Sri Lanka, where agriculture remains a cornerstone industry. Japan has remained resolute in its commitment to extend support, especially during these testing times for Sri Lanka. Over the past year, the government of Japan has allocated grants amounting to nearly $100 million to Sri Lanka. Japan is also committed to support the communities in northern and eastern provinces, which are severely affected by the civil war. During these trying times, Japan, guided by the shared belief that agriculture is the foundation of the nation, remains steadfast in its commitment to uphold Sri Lanka's agricultural rural communities.
Under this emergency assistance program, farmers cultivating up to 0.5 hectares of land will receive 25 kilograms of urea fertilizer free of charge, while those cultivating up to 1 hectare of land will receive 50 kilograms of urea, also provided at no cost to the farmers.
The Satyagraha launched by farmers of Ambilipitia belonging to the Vallava zone demanding water from the Samanala River concluded on Thursday. Meanwhile, farmers of Angunukola Palace claim that after farmers in high-lying areas directed water for themselves, access to water has been limited to their cultivations.
The matter was raised in Parliament and attention was directed towards ensuring the Samanala River water crisis does not lead to a conflict between the two farming communities.
The Satyagraha launched by farmers of Ambilipitia came to an end on Thursday with the provision of water to the cultivation fields.
We will halt this attempt temporarily, but we will not stop our effort. This government did not provide us water. We fought for it. The farming community must be fairly compensated. We have to face that battle in the future.
Even though water has been released to the Vallava reservoir from the Samanala River, water has not been provided to fields of the Vallava left bank of the Mayurapura Mahavali zone. As a result, 47 hectares of paddy fields are at risk of being destroyed.
75% of the fields have been destroyed. The paddy saplings have grown, but there is no paddy. We didn't get water today either, but water was released from the Samanala River on Tuesday or on the day before. We think it will take around 10 days for the water to reach this area, so it is of no use to these farmlands. You destroyed our crops intentionally. We have spent nearly 300,000 rupees per hectare. Pay the compensation to us.
A conflicting situation has arisen between farmers regarding obtaining water that flows through canals from the Vallava reservoir. Farmers of Angunukola Palace said farmers of Buvaliara had forcefully diverted water from the main irrigation channels, and as a result they are not receiving water for their crops.
Farmers in the upper areas are fighting over the water. They said compensation will be given, but what can be done with 40,000 rupees for an acre? Can they fill their stomachs with that money?
Farmers' attempts to resolve the issue today failed, and former member of the Angunukola Palace Pradeshiya Sabha, Somasiri Maddumarachi, protested by setting fire to his destroyed paddy field.
I am a farmer that cultivated 9 acres of paddy land to feed the nation. I am setting fire to 2.5 acres of it today. We didn't receive help from anyone. Minister of Power, Kanchana Wijesekara, and Agriculture Minister is responsible for the state of my paddy fields today.
Minister of Agriculture expressed these views at an event in Homagama on Thursday.
We cannot force anything on the farming community. We cannot forget that this is an agricultural country. If we go wrong there is no coming back from it. If we lead the farmers to the streets, that is a wrong move. There are many examples. I won't explain the situation in Udawalawa. The farmers are burnt due to our inability to work together. We could have managed this.
With water being released to farmlands, the Samanalavawa hydropower plant is operating at maximum capacity. Accordingly, its water capacity has dropped to 7.8%. Under this situation, hydropower generation at the power plant will end in around 5 days. Although it was announced that power will have to be purchased under this situation, there were no reports of an agreement being reached with private power plants. The next alternative to supply electricity to the southern province is to complete the short distance of the transmission line built from Pulpitiya to Hambantota, which was suspended due to a land dispute. If that is done, power can be supplied to the southern province through the national grid. A discussion is due to be held on Friday, chaired by the President. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Electricity Board has increased hydropower generation as 2 generators at the Norotcholi power plant are inactive. On Wednesday night, 43.1% of the total power generation was obtained from the country's reservoirs. As a result, the water levels of the main reservoirs are dropping rapidly. Senior officials of the Mahawali Authority said another severe water crisis may arise if the expected rainfall is not received. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa requested the parliament not to allow conflicts to arise between farmers over the lack of water.
Today the farmers are under great stress due to the limited amount of water. This government, which is trying to destroy the farming industry, has been unable to manage the water resources. Therefore, I request the Deputy Speaker to at least make an appeal. I am making a request from the government. Please do not create disputes among farmers, but work towards distributing the water in a fair manner. The opposition leader requested that we make a request and using police intervention to try and distribute the water so that no conflict arise between farmers. We have also made an appeal. Chamal Rajapaksha knows about this as well. You must all have made requests, but that is not the reality of today's world. We have to resolve this situation and not let it escalate any further. We have to accept that what has happened is an unfortunate event. Now what has happened is the paddy and harvests have been destroyed and the farmers are also in conflict. I will have to speak on behalf of the farming community. If we could have found a solution for this earlier, we could have somewhat de-escalated the situation. Because we could not provide a solution on time, the farmers are at conflict with each other. So I take this situation to openly ask the farming community not to rise to conflicts, but to resolve this issue in a civil manner. We had to get the President to intervene. If he hadn't done that, we would not have been provided a solution to this issue.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe said a task force for agricultural modernization will be formed soon. He said this will be inclusive of government and private sector representatives and will merge agriculture, plantations and irrigation and Mahawali development ministries. The President's media division said that this unification, along with resources from 9 provincial councils, aims to efficiently tackle agriculture-related issues.
The Bali Process Tech Forum against modern-day slavery began today in Bali, Indonesia.
The high-profile international forum saw the presence of Indonesia's Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi, together with Law and Human Rights Minister Yasona Laoli, while Penny Wong, Australia's Foreign Minister, connected in from Canberra. The Bali Process is a global movement against modern slavery in all its forms and is spearheaded by its co-chairs, Australian mining billionaire Dr. Andrew Forrest and Indonesian energy billionaire Garibaldi Thohir. Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Siobhan Daniel, briefed Indonesia's Law and Human Rights Minister and the co-chairs on regional challenges faced by migrant workers and discussed a cooperative way forward to protect Sri Lanka's migrant workers exposed to human rights violations overseas. A variety of initiatives taken by the government and the movement in supporting families affected by migrant workers were also discussed in detail at panel discussions. The forum is part of a global fight to protect over 30 million people in various forms of modern slavery around the world by pushing for legislation and collective responsibility by nations seen as source countries and also nations that are employment destinations. The latest global slavery report was also launched at the forum.
News first with the people.
Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy research and survey ship Haiyang 24 Hao arrived in Colombo.
The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy Research and Service ship Haiyang 24 Hao arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit this morning. The 129-meter-long ship, which arrived in Colombo, is manned by a crew of 138 and it is commanded by Commander Jin Chin. Meanwhile, the ship is scheduled to depart the island on the 12th of August.
In more local news, the Collective to Protect the Motherland and the Collective for Religious Coexistence attempted to hand over a letter to the Indian High Commission in Colombo.
The Collective to Protect the Motherland and the Collective for Religious Coexistence marched to the Indian High Commission in Colombo and were obstructed by Sri Lanka police.
No one will accept the letter. They informed us that they will not be accepting any letters. India is directly interfering with our affairs, citing racial issues. Our country is getting used to have everything provided by India. We need to question their moral right to interfere with our matter.
අපේ රාජ්‍යය තුළ යම් යම් ගැටලු ප්‍රශ්න මතුවුණා තමයි. ඒ දේශපාලන අවශ්‍යතාවයන් මත
There were issues in the country and those were done for political needs by IRC men, ethanol and drug peddlers and ruffians. Apart from that, all communities are living in harmony.
ඉතා සාමකාමීව සහ ඉතා බැඳියාවකින් ආදරයෙන් ජීවත් වෙනවා.
After failing to hand over their letter, the group remained opposite the Indian High Commission and Sri Lanka police decided to remove them from the area.
The Tamil National Alliance lawmakers held talks with Tiran Alas, Sri Lanka's Public Security Minister, with regard to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
The Ministry of Public Security stated in an announcement that special attention was given to the police powers. During the discussion, the MPs of the TNA said that distribution of power is executed extremely well in developed countries in England and India and that there is a possibility that they can implement the same system in Sri Lanka as well. The Ministry of Public Security confirmed that Minister Tiran Alas pointed out the differences between the political and social cultures of England and Sri Lanka. The minister, responding to the statement made by Tamil Alliance MPs that there has been an increase in the incidence of drugs and crime in the northern region, has said that the information available on such matters should be given to the Special Police Committee appointed in this regard.
SLPP MP Professor Ranjit Bandara said the SLPP will contest any upcoming election under the symbol of the flower bud or the Pohottua. He said that a candidate whose name has 3 Sinhala letters will contest the presidential election.
You all can see that the SLPP's ideologies have spread among the people faster than the defeat of the 2015 presidential election. Today the SLPP banner has become a national symbol. I would like to say that we will represent any further elections under the SLPP banner.
දැන් මේ මතවාදයත් එක්ක ඉදිරියට එන ඔබතුමන්ලගේ අකුරු තුනේ අපේක්ෂකයාගේ සූදානම කොහොමද? අපි අදත් කියන්නේ
We say again, a candidate for the presidential election will be presented through the SLPP.
අකුරු තුනේ අය කිහිප දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා ඔබතුමන්ලා සතුව.
අපි ඔබතුමාලට ඔය ඉස්සෙල්ලා කියලා තියෙනවා අපි බෙර ගහලා සක්කන්න පිමලා එතුමාව ගෙනාවා.
ඒ කියන්නේ රාජපක්ෂ කෙනෙක්ද?
ඉතින් මෙහෙමනේ.
So there are some secrets in politics that we don't like to reveal. They will be revealed in time. It is like this. A cake is converted in icing only when we taste it, we know the flavor. Till then, we have to be patient.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the importance of capital, particularly financial and human, for driving growth. The President was addressing the 36th annual conference of the Organization of Professional Associations, or OPA, of Sri Lanka on Wednesday in Colombo.
Now to go ahead, have we got the capital that is required? Remember this, Sri Lanka was one of the first countries to join the commercial era. The whole of Colebrook-Cameron report was to do away with feudalism and open it up for commercial activity. And from 1840 onwards, we built up our capital. First the foreigners, then the Sri Lankans. But from 1970 onwards, all that was destroyed, done away with. Government took over and the whole thing collapsed. When we came in 77, it couldn't be revived. The capital formation was broken, as you know. From 77 onwards, we slowly built up our capital. But we didn't open out. So this is the difference. Vietnam in 1990 had less capital than us. They opened up, got foreign investment, and today, look at their financial capital available.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe recently revealed that Sri Lanka's intention to join the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership is poised to materialize following the conclusion of credit optimization initiatives.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe attended the 56th anniversary of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, on Tuesday at the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Colombo. During the event, the President announced plans to initiate negotiations for the establishment of free trade agreements with corresponding ASEAN member countries.
Second was the invitation for Sri Lanka to become a founding member of ASEAN. It was natural because during World War II, we all formed what was known as the Southeast Asia Command. There was no South Asia at that time. So this debate went on and we got some extended time. People like Mr. J.R. Jayawardena, some of the other ministers, people outside the cabinet and parliament like my father, all were pressing to go ahead with the Shenoy reforms and join the ASEAN. But Mr. Dudley Senack was also the Minister for External Affairs. And unfortunately, the Treasury officials advised him not to risk opening the economy, and the External Affairs officials told him, don't join ASEAN because non-aligned movement will not accept. So here we are, 56 years later. The countries of ASEAN has prospered. What did we do? For 3 years later, we turned into a socialist economy. And we broke up our capital formations and we've gone ahead. We have not completely liberated ourselves from the shackles of that economy. Here you are, one of the biggest economies of the world with the potential to be the 5th largest or the 4th largest, expanding. And here we are, at the end of 55 years, becoming bankrupt. Once debt restructuring is over, we'd like to play our part in the RCEP and at the same time keep negotiating with the other ASEAN countries our own free trade agreement. This is what we have to do. We couldn't get into ASEAN. We refused to get into ASEAN, not that we couldn't. And now we must join the RCEP and go ahead. There is no reason for rejecting the RCEP. We have this agreement with RCEP. We are negotiating our agreements to upgrade our agreements with India and hopefully with Bangladesh, so we could cover from whole of Bay of Bengal to the east of it until Japan.
Sri Lanka Foreign Minister Ali Sabri, President's Council, on Thursday informed the Parliament that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is not the focal point for the subject area that comes under the purview of MCC. He was responding to a question posed over the arrival of a top-level US delegation to Sri Lanka in February 2023.
While the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the link between the foreign countries, entities, institutions and the ministries and departments, institutions in Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is not the focal point for the subject area that comes under the purview of MCC. It is noted that an expert committee was appointed by the Cabinet in December 2019 to review the MCC agreement, and the final report was handed over to the former president in June 2020. The proposed so far is an agreement between United States and Sri Lanka. Accordingly, the line ministry in this regard is also the Ministry of Defence, and information required may be obtained from the Ministry of Defence. AXA is also an agreement, comes under the Defence Ministry. The relevant line ministry in this regard is the Ministry of Defence, and further information may be obtained from the Ministry of Defence. I am aware that the 2 aircraft belonging to the American Air Force arrived at the Katunayaka Bandaranaike International Airport in the afternoon of the 14th of February 2023. They have officially entered the country. The 2 planes that have arrived at the Katunayaka International Airport under number RCH 23/992142A and RCH 231/00215 capital A. I further mentioned that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has done only the necessary diplomatic clearances for the C-130 aircraft to fly to Sri Lanka. The chairman of the Airport and Aviation Air Private Limited has informed that the names, passport numbers and visa numbers of the people who came to the second 2 aircraft can be obtained from the Department of Immigration and Emigration. Further, Airport and Aviation Services Private Limited has informed this ministry that they are not aware of the fact to which organization in the United States the said group belongs to and any responsible for, and have met with the parties which organization in Sri Lanka bearing what responsibilities and what matters to the agreement were discussed in this meeting.
2 special US Air Force planes landed at the Katunayaka Airport late on the 14th of February and left the following day. Sources at the Katunayaka International Airport told News First that these 2 special US Air Force planes reached Sri Lanka from a US military base in Greece. These aircraft were identified as C-17 Globemasters. It was reported that 29 personnel, including a high-level delegation from the United States of America, arrived aboard these planes. Local media had reported that the delegation included US Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Affairs, Jedediah Royal.
Thousands of Korea's civil servants are being mobilized to help run the World Scout Jamboree.
In response to Typhoon Khanun, the Korean government, in collaboration with the World Organization of the Scout Movement and the Korean Scout Association, held several emergency meetings and created a detailed evacuation master plan. This plan was communicated to all participants through special heads of contingent meetings as well as official social media channels. On Tuesday, a total of 39,000 campers and staff were safely evacuated to the Seoul area thanks to the use of over 1,000 luxury buses. Despite the rainy conditions caused by the typhoon's landfall, the Jamboree organizers and Dankook University have arranged engaging indoor programs. International Commissioner and Head of Sri Lanka Contingent, Dr. Rajiva Peris, said that the Sri Lankan contingent is in good health and high spirits.
Divisavya, the second leg of the Divisavya program to provide much needed school books and stationery items to school children in Sri Lanka. 11th of August, Kandy.
දයි දරුවන්ගේ අනාගතය වෙනුවෙන් දිවිසව්‍ය LOLC ප්‍රජාසත්කාරක මෙහෙවර.
Still in local news, the launch of the Boat and Marine Show 2023 took place in Colombo on Wednesday the 9th.
The Boat and Marine Show 2023, organised by the Chamber of Marine Industry Sri Lanka, aimed to showcase Sri Lanka's quality of work and exchange skills and technology with all other boat building countries in the world. State Minister of Investment Promotion Diluma Munugama and Minister of Tourism Harin Fernando participated in the event.
We need to identify Sri Lanka as a marine destination, and one of the best ways to do is with these sailboats, with more events. If you are to make tourism a lucrative industry, it is absolutely important people to spend more. Right now we have 5,000 tourists arriving a day. So there's so much of investment opportunity. I was thinking even Sri Lankan schools should start sailing as a sport. These are things that how we can really promote marine tourism. We have prepared a calendar for Sri Lanka, whether the governments change, whether a minister change, the calendar of events in Sri Lanka should remain. October should be our marine tourism month. We are on the process of developing a yacht marina in Galle, Port City, as well as Trinco. Those three will be ideally enough. Maintenance of these boats is another part of it. We have the quality, standards are much higher. we have a product and we Sri Lankans could do it.
The Boat and Marine Show 2023 will be held on the 27th, 28th and 29th of October at the Colombo Port City.
The traditional ceremony to invite the ancestors of the Senguntha family to the Nallur Kandaswamy Kovil for the annual Tiruvilla traditional procession took place on Thursday.
The annual Tiruvilla traditional procession is held to celebrate the Nallur Kandaswamy Kovil festival. After the Valliyammai Thirukalyana study was done at the temple, the Kalanji for the traditional members offering Kodi Chile was taken in a single wheel cart from Nallur to Kalviyankadu in a bullock cart. Afterwards, the invitation and the Kalanji for the festival were handed over as per the cultural tradition. It is noteworthy that every year the flag is hoisted on the 6th day from the new moon of Adi, and the Nallur festival, which is held for 25 consecutive days, is held on the 24th and 25th day respectively. This is followed by the Chariot Festival and Tirtha Festival. Meanwhile, after the special puja services held this morning, the newly placed chapel of Chapparam at the Nallur Kandaswamy Kovil was brought to the Chapparam Peedam to be pulled by the devotees.
Moving on to news overseas. A rocket plane is due to fly from New Mexico carrying an 80-year-old British former Olympian, an Aberdeen student and her mother into space.
Anastasia Myers and her mother Keisha Shahaf won the tickets to board the Virgin Galactic flight in a competition. John Goodwin from Newcastle-under-Lyme will become the second person with Parkinson's disease to go to space. The mission will be seen as another test of how viable space tourism is. The launch window for the Virgin Galactic 2 flight opens at 8:30 local time. It is Virgin Galactic's second commercial flight. The first was in June when the Italian Air Force and scientists conducted experiments in weightless conditions on a 70-minute mission.
Well, that's it from the News First English desk for tonight. I'm Ravi Gamage.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara. For all these stories and much more, you can visit our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. Thank you for watching. Good night.